You're live.
Okay, hey everybody. Welcome to Trail Talk. I'm back. I am, Bailey, I got the whole thing here on the screen, if you don't mind. Sorry guys, my technical assistant is finishing up. There we go. So I hope you guys are all doing well. Welcome to Trail Talk, Oklahoma State Symbols Volume 5. That's right, this is our 5th episode of Trail Talk about Oklahoma State Symbols, and we are not even close to being finished yet. So, but we're back in the Chuck Wagon studio here at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center in Duncan, Oklahoma, and we are super glad that you are watching today. I'm going to give a little shout out. Let me make sure. Yeah, it's 2 o'clock now. Hopefully, my new friend, Mr. Ratliff, at the Museum of the Red River is watching. I'll give you a shout out. Hey, how you doing? And I think we'll just go ahead and get started. So the first state symbol that we're going to talk about today is the American buffalo, American bison. Honestly, either of those, bison or buffalo, those words are, even though they kind of mean different animals, it's perfectly acceptable to use either of those when you're talking about this animal right here. And we've done a trail talk that was specifically about the buffalo, and we have a lot of information, but I'm not going to go back over everything that we've taught about this great, amazing beast before, but I am going to hit some of the highlights of it, just because this animal is not just significant to the state of Oklahoma, it's really very significant to the entire United States. And it was chosen as Oklahoma's state animal in 1972, but in 2016, President Obama designated this as the official mammal symbol of the United States. And, historically, the buffalo, the bison, basically ran all of this land that's called the United States. Sorry about that. That was so rude of me for my phone to start ringing. I didn't turn it off. But they pretty much covered all of the land from Alaska to Mexico, and then almost from coast to coast. At one point, there are estimates of, I've read 60 million, I've read 4 million, I don't know, 60 million maybe that entire, basically all of Canada and the United States and down into Mexico, all of North America. But unfortunately, there was a time when these animals were hunted and just slaughtered. I'm not even going to say hunted. They were slaughtered, literally slaughtered, until there were, from tens of millions down to 531 individual buffalo. That was all they could account for in all of North America. So to say they were near extinction is almost an understatement. And it was in 1889 that the government really started putting strict guidelines down on, I guess probably even more than a guideline, but strict laws on how buffalo could be hunted. And they were put on the endangered species list at that time. And they were, I guess you could call it just the entire species was nursed along, and they were placed at different locations just a few miles from where I am right now, at a place called the Wichita Mountain Wildlife Refuge. That was one of the first places that buffalo were brought from a zoo in New York out here to the wildlife refuge. And that was one of the first herds that they tried to repopulate the North America. And they said about 500,000 bison currently exist. 30,000 of those are on public land, and about 15,000 of those are actually considered free range buffalo. So they're kind of living like their ancestors once did. We'll never see millions of buffalo again because, there's no land area large enough to contain a herd that large. But, and it's not just the herd size that's large. These animals are enormous. They weigh about a ton. A male buffalo will weigh about a ton. It's called a bull. And so that's about 2,000 pounds. They can stand about 6 feet tall. So, they are gigantic, but they are agile. They can jump 6 feet in the air, and they can run about 40 miles an hour for about 5 miles. So even though they look big and cumbersome and slow, they can chase you down. In fact, I read that more people were killed by buffalo at Yellowstone National Park than by bears. And it's because people get out and their vehicles, they try to take pictures of these animals, and they end up agitating them. And their defense mechanism is first to charge and fight. And so you need to use your common sense and be very careful. They may seem domesticated, but unless they're in your pasture and you know them personally, you might as well consider these to be wild and dangerous animals. They are a close relative to the domestic cattle of North America, but they are a very different animal from the European buffalo. They kind of have a similar body structure, but the American buffalo, the hump is not quite as large. The head is much larger than the European, and so they're just kind of shaped different. They're herbivores, so if they charge you, they're not charging you to eat you. They are not attack animals like that. They really eat grass, and the reason they are kind of nomadic animals is because they graze an area and they eat the grass down until it's so short they can't really eat anymore, and so they move on to find more pasture. They eat, the grass or the straw, things like that. And then they drink a lot of water, or they'll eat snow. If they're in a place where there's a lot of snow, they'll eat snow. And so those are the two things that are in their diet. And they are like cattle in that they have 4 stomachs. And so they have the whole chewing their cud thing that they do. They make wallows in the ground because they roll around to kind of clean themselves in the dirt. And they're just an amazing animal, and one that has left a huge mark on our nation. The Plains tribes of Indians, Native Americans, depended on these creatures for survival, literally. And so they used every part of the buffalo, and I mean every part. I know in your head you're thinking, well, what about, or what, I bet they did. Yes, they used everything. They used like internal organs for different purposes. They used the bone, they used the brain, they used the fur, the hides, the tails, the hooves, everything. So don't try to stump me, because I bet I can think of something that they used one of these pieces for, but I'm not gonna go through all of that with you today. But the Plains tribes also considered them, or they used them in rituals, and they were significant, a significant religious symbol, and considered sacred to many of the tribes. So anyway, it's a very interesting animal to study. So I would encourage you to maybe go a little deeper on that. So the next state symbol we're going to talk about is the European honeybee. That little critter right there. Now, I am not a person who is fond of bees. They kind of creep me out a little bit. They're so persistent, you know. But these honeybees are such an important, they play such an important role in agriculture. I understand that they are necessary. And, you know, sometimes they make the news where there is an illness or some kind of predator or a mite or something that's killing off large numbers of honeybees. And when that happens, it impacts the whole agricultural industry. They are actually a state insect to several other states, 20 states total, and they were selected as our state insect in 1992. Because flower population is critical to plant and human survival, that's their main role. When I say they play an important role in agriculture, it's pollination. That's their job. So
hang on just a moment.
Oh, okay. Are we getting a message?
We got a message, but it says our video ended. Let me just refresh the page. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. Is it still showing up on the feed?
It's showing on my. It hasn't gone off on my phone yet.
Okay. Is it caught up on your phone? Does it seem like it?
We're good now.
Okay, had a little technical difficulty, but we are back on. Okay, so I was saying that the honeybee is a pollinator. That's their big role in agriculture. And this European honeybee, sometimes also referred to as the Western honeybee, is probably one of the most common. But they are the ones who swarm. They live in hives of as many as 80,000 bees. And the whole workings of a beehive or this group of bees, hives, is just super fascinating to me. So there's one queen, and she can live for 8 years and lay up to 1,500 eggs a day. So the others are called worker bees, but if you ask me, Queenie is doing some work too. I think she must just be laying eggs all day, every day. So the male drones their main job is just to fertilize or mate with the queen so that she can continue laying these fertilized eggs to reproduce. And then the other workers in a beehive are females, and they are females who are not fertile. So they would never mate and lay eggs. There's just the one. I just find this to be so interesting. So there are different jobs, like the younger worker bees, the females. They build the hive, maintain it, take care of the eggs, the larvae, and take care of the queen, the drones. They regulate the temperature and defend the hive. Now that's the young ones. When one of these goes from being young to old, I'm not sure. I mean, if the queen lives 8 years, I don't know. Oh, I'm about to tell you how long they live. The older workers are called field bees, and they gather nectar and forage for pollen, water, and plant resins to aid in the hive construction. So they're kind of the ones who go out and bring things in. But now, when we talk about them being older and younger, they only live about 6 weeks. So it's kind of a rapid, I don't know if you call it a digression or whatever, but from being young to old happens pretty fast. You know, you feel like time passes fast for people. I'm afraid these worker bees have a lot faster time thing going on than we do. If they're born in the summer months, they live about 6 weeks. If they're born in the fall, they will survive into the spring. So maybe their lifespan is, 8 weeks, maybe 10 if they're lucky. And Native Americans would refer to these honeybees as white man's flies. That was kind of just a little tidbit thing I thought would be interesting. These have been domesticated. You know, a lot of people, I guess you call it beekeepers, you know, they have hives, and so they are producing honey to sell and things like that. And they keep kind of a containment on the bees. Or if you've ever seen a swarm of bees somewhere, you know, you can call a local beekeeper and they'll come and take them. And I don't know if you've ever seen them. You know, of course, they wear those big protective suit things, but they'll take smoke and it kind of makes the bees kind of sleepy, and then they can just put them in a little container and take them off to their hive or release them somewhere. But the hives are considered superorganisms, and the whole idea is to keep the whole hive alive, not like individual bees. So when the eggs hatch, the queen eventually will. Let me find this part. Okay, so these female eggs will hatch, and all the females, the new ones, will fight each other until, okay, there are daughter queens that hatch. And I don't know how that happens, which ones are daughter queens and which ones are just workers. I'm not sure on the females, but the old queen will leave and take about 2/3 of the adult workers, and they'll go in a swarm and travel to a new place to make a new hive, because one of these daughter queens will emerge as the queen. And there's literally it's a fight off. I mean, they just fight it out until there's only one still alive. So they're kind of mean. I'd call them mean girls, like big time mean girls. And so then that queen, she won't have any drones there to mate with. And so she will lay eggs that are not fertilized. And let me get this, those grow into, virgin females are able to lay eggs that develop into males. And wasps, other bees, and ants will also do that. And then once there are males there, she can make female offspring, and they make up about 90% of the bees in a hive, the females do. And those are all the worker bees that we talked about earlier. And she goes on these little nuptial flights with the new queen does, with these male drones, and she will mate with 1 to 17. That's a very specific number, and I'm guessing there's been a lot of study for that very specific number to be there. But and then once she finishes mating, within 2 weeks, she will start laying eggs. So they go through metamorphosis from egg to larva to pupa to adult, and then we know that the adult lifespan is super short. And they have several predators. So, you know, if you know of a beehive or somewhere near you, you might look out for some of these predators, just in an effort to help protect these bees, because they're so important. But giant hornets, not the murder hornets of 2020, although they may go after, if they go after people, I'm guessing they'll go after a honeybee too. Wasp, robber flies, dragonflies, praying mantises, some spiders, which Bailey has no trouble killing every spider she sees. So even those, some amphibians, like some lizards or bullfrogs, which is interesting because, you know, that's the Oklahoma amphibian, is the bullfrog. And then some animals, like some bees are actually bee eaters. That's a little cannibalistic, a little bit weird. Some birds. And then you get your bears, possums, raccoons, and of course your honey badger, which will eat a honey bee. Now, honeybees are not native to the Americas, and Thomas Jefferson actually wrote about that. in his notes on the state of Virginia. He journaled everything. If you've ever gone anywhere or studied Thomas Jefferson, he journaled everything. So he left a wealth of information for us. But they believe they came to North America in about the 18th century. So they've been here a long time, but they just didn't originate here. So we're going to move on now and talk about the state wildflower, which is the Indian blanket. And this particular picture has a honeybee on it too. Isn't that cute? So even the Indian blanket is pollinated by our state insect. So this was selected as our state wildflower in 1986. We have a floral emblem and a state flower in addition to a state wildflower. But, it's the distinctive, the center has the little spiky things on it. And then it's a member of the daisy family. And we see the red that goes out to yellow on the outside edge. They're a beautiful flower. Usually they start blooming in the springtime when the Indian paintbrushes and all the other wildflowers start blooming. We're fortunate here in Duncan that there's a big wide median on Highway 81 between Duncan and Marlow, and wildflowers are planted out there. And it is one of my favorite things is to drive and look at all the beautiful wildflowers that are there. And these Indian blankets always start popping up. They're a little bit later because they really like the hot, dry climate, and they last longer into the summer months, but they grow really well in a dry, arid climate. And so, they're obviously the perfect wildflower for this part of the country. You can't really see the leaves here, but they have kind of a fuzzy stem. Let's see, they called it I think furry is the word they called it. And then they have kind of the, just like we were talking about, the pinwheel description of the petals, just kind of the nice all the way around. Sometimes this part in here will almost turn violet colored where it first meets the center of the flower. And they don't just grow well here in Oklahoma. They grow in Mexico, the whole central U.S., Arizona, Florida, the Carolinas, Nebraska, Ontario, China, South Africa, and parts of South and Central America. So these guys are hardy, and they'll show up, you could be almost anywhere, it sounds like, and see some of our state wildflower, which would be a really cool thing to do. Take a trip sometime and see if you can find the Indian blankets in different places around the world. They're even out over in Taiwan. So they're a pretty prolific flower. Okay, we're going to move on now and talk about our Oklahoma State dinosaur. This is super cool and interesting. I borrowed this picture from the Museum of the Red River. They were nice enough to let me use it. And I don't know about you, but this guy reminds me of a very big, ferocious Tyrannosaurus Rex. He's got a big head and little arms. I don't know if y'all remember that movie, The Robinsons. Oh, big head, little arms. Anyway, but he looks super mean, like he's going after these long-necked dinosaurs over here. One difference is he's got this fin on his back, which is different from a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Oh, I never have said the name, and that's because I'm building up my courage to try to pronounce. Acrocanthosaurus adokensis. Yeah, just like that. I dare you to say that 5 times fast. Anyway, these dinosaurs were almost 40 feet long. So they were huge. That is so big. That's like a 4-story building, put it on its side. That's how long they were. And they were one of the largest predators in North America. They don't really know for sure what this is for, that fin. Some scientists say it was used in mating. Others is that was like a defense mechanism. Maybe it was part of the structure of the dinosaur that kind of helped keep its skeleton in place. You know, nobody really knows for sure. It was a long time before people, and we only have the bone structures to imagine what they actually looked like. So that's kind of a, you know, an educated, I hate to say guess, but I mean, that's kind of what it really is. It's an educated guess. So they would stalk prey in open, arid environments or low-lying riverbeds. In this picture, it's kind of, there's a little bit of water there, so it's kind of a dry-looking place. But the first remains were discovered in 1940 by a J. Willis Stovall and Juan Langston Jr. near Atoka. And that's why the Atokensis part of the name, it was because it was found near Atoka, Oklahoma. So that's a cool shout out to Oklahoma, to the place where it was found. Other fossils have been found in Texas, Utah, maybe Maryland, but the most complete skeleton was found in 1983, less than 20 miles from the museum. And I don't necessarily think that that was the Museum of the Red River. If Museum of the Red River, if you're watching, is that accurate that it was found 20 miles from your museum, or was this another museum? If you don't mind commenting on that, I'd like to know that for sure. Anyway, maybe it was because they had trouble with the fossil. It was very fragile. And so they contacted Alan and Fran Graffam of Geological Enterprises in Ardmore, Oklahoma. And with their help, maybe it was the Museum of the Red River. It kind of sounds like it was. They took the remains to the Black Hills Institute for Geological Research in South Dakota. And it was eventually sold to the North Carolina Museum of Natural History. So if you're ever out in North Carolina, I don't know what city that's in, but you could go see this, the most complete skeleton that was ever unearthed of this Acrocanthosaurus. I always wondered why they make all the dinosaur names so hard to pronounce. You know, it's a tricky thing. So the cast at the Museum of the Red River is a copy of the original bones. So you can go to this Museum of the Red River. I put some of their information on here. 812 East Lincoln Road on South Highway Bypass in Idabel. Bailey's going to come in here a little closer. Their hours are Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 5. And closed Mondays and on holidays. Here's a phone number. Here's some ways you can contact them. They have a Facebook page called Museum of the Red River, set MOTRR, Museum of the Red River. And admission is always free to this museum. So I am so thrilled that I found this while I was doing my research about the Oklahoma state dinosaur symbol, because I just think that this is so cool. And I think I found a new place that I want to go visit. So I just want to encourage you guys. This is I think probably a cast. Maybe this is a picture of an actual head of one of the, I'm just going to call him Acro for short. You know how they did T-Rex? I think I'll call him Acro. So this is some really cool information. So you guys go to the Museum of the Red River and check this thing out. They go to their website. Their website has so many cool activities. They have like a dino camp that is all virtual right now, and you can go through and look at all the videos. So anyway, very cool information that they have about the state dinosaur. Okay, and now we're going to talk about our Oklahoma State cartoon character, Gusty. Now, I'll be honest with you. I am not familiar with Gusty, even though Gusty, he's a little bit older than I am. He was created by a man named Don Woods in 1954. So he's really so much older than me, way older than me, who was a meteorologist at KTUL TV in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he was a meteorologist for 35 years, and he used Gusty as a part of his weathercasting and probably a lot of school visits and, you know, kids. And from what I understand, this is his like a picture of an original sketch of Gusty, and he would give these away nightly. At some point on the his weather program, he would give away a drawing of Gusty. This was a little kind of a model made from the Don Woods website. You can find a picture of that. I found this on our Oklahoma State Symbols, Oklahoma Historical Society State Symbols website. But, you know, he wasn't just a meteorologist. Obviously, he was an artist, instructor, author, illustrator, mentor, and friend to multitudes. So a shout out to Mr. Woods and everything that he did to, we all know how important meteorology is in the state of Oklahoma, and how, you know, people kind of get to where they feel like they have a first name basis with meteorologists here because of how much we watch weather, especially in the springtime here in Oklahoma. And I'm always so grateful for people who study the weather. But Gusty was selected in 2005 as the first cartoon symbol for any state. So way to go, Oklahoma. Way to set the standard out there. So Mr. Woods, he worked, like I said, in Tulsa, and he used his character. He would draw him on the air, and with a reference to recent weather as the focus of this simple character. And I'm sure people who watched him regularly loved it. But he would use Gusty to demonstrate how to be weather smart during thunderstorms and tornado activities. I'm sure there were so many children who learned from Gusty and Mr. Woods. But Gusty sometimes would go swimming or fishing or water skiing or even play a little football. And he was also a responsible little cartoon character. He would rake leaves, mow the grass, or just sometimes read a good book. What a cool guy old Gusty was, right? Anyway, some of the drawings of Gusty are installed in Tulsa's Gilcrease Museum and at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. Now, this doesn't tell me which Smithsonian. If you know anything about D.C., there's a bunch of them. But I have a feeling it's probably American History, the Museum of American History. That'd probably be my guess of where Gusty is. I was there a couple of years ago, and I don't remember seeing that, but it doesn't mean it wasn't there. It's been a couple of years ago, people, and I might have slept a time or two since then. So sorry about that. Anyway, his work was also part of a 2010, Mr. Woods' work was part of a 2010 exhibition on Oklahoma cartoonists at the Oklahoma History Center. And Mr. Woods has passed away in 2012, and I'm sure it's considered a huge loss, but what a great legacy he left behind. And we are really appreciative of Gusty and everything Gusty has done for the state of Oklahoma. Well, guys, that concludes our Oklahoma State Symbols, Volume 5. Thanks for watching today. Museum of the Red River, I hope you guys were able to watch along. We are so glad to know about you and give you guys a shout out today. And so you all know it's time to say happy trails. And so I'll see you next time. Tomorrow, oh, wait, before you go, we're going to be a little bit after 2 tomorrow. We're planning to start Trail Talk about 2:15. We are teaching, and our teaching time's running a little bit close. So we're going to be starting at 2:15 instead of 2 o'clock. Please go ahead and plan to join us. Jilly Jones, a local photographer who is super skilled, man. She is so creative. We can't wait to have her on. So now I've teased Bailey. She's tried to disconnect several times. So I'm going to go this time. Bye, guys. Happy trails.
Happy trails.